Oh man, when you're just about to record a video, it auto plays just 1 second, into the video, and it's a perfect pause game for the thumbnail. Oh man. This is fantastic. I could not have planned that better than if I tried. Holy shit. Oh man. All right. So is this co-host under the desk? Probably. One of the ass eaters little twink buddies, one of them's under the desk. All right, so this is Sargon and one of his goons talking about we're more than just matter. So we're gonna get philosophical, and we're gonna try and analyze some philosophical spiritualism from Mr. Avocado Benjamin.
The problem, I think, with this, and this actually harkens back very much to what I've been reading a lot with C.S. Lewis, is the idea that actually we aren't merely matter. You know, that's the problem, is reducing the human and everything that humans have built to mere matter. And then...
Who does that? Does anybody actually do that? I mean, there's like the argument that everything is basically matter in so much as like inside material reality, and removing the notions of spiritualism or etheric energy fields or some shit like that. There is that argument, I suppose, but to just kind of like make that an argument that people hold all the time, I don't know. That's very strange. It's a weird premise to start an argument from.
Trying to explain the existence of a cathedral. Why does that exist? Well, it's a thing of tremendous beauty, and it used to be, you know, the center of like the city's community. But you can't really explain it in purely material terms.
Yes, you can, because it's a material object, but there is also more to it, in so much as like the effort that was put into it, the innovation of the technology, the feelings of people behind it. Sure, I guess.
And so you have to explain it in transcendental terms. You have to suggest that actually there's a kind of spiritual order that is being upheld with these things. And this requires a great stock of wisdom in order to show, look, because the materialist can't explain what the actual benefits of people sincerely believing in a transcendental order are.
Yes, they can. Yes, a materialist absolutely can. It's called results. Historiosity, things that happen. Yeah, a materialist can absolutely still explain it. Of course they can. To reduce that, you see, this is one of these things where Sargon is making a video that is basically, I am 14 and I am deep. It's one of the things that drives me crazy about him, is people think of him as an intellectual, but he's only intellectual if he waters something down to such a base component that he like gets into like a 101 level class worth of argumentation, you know, like from a community college, and not even a good community college, like a pretty bad one. And people are like, that's deep. Is it? Sure.
But there obviously were them, because we've got these great and beautiful cathedrals that everyone wants to go and see. People come from all over the world, see the wonderful cathedrals, take pictures and look at these amazing buildings. And it's like, okay, but that wasn't science that built those.
Yes, it was. Science was utilized to build those things. Absolutely.
So how did they come into existence?
Yes, and actually you've hit upon a very important point here, because this shows precisely how we are to think of ourselves nowadays. As you say, the materialist would try to say, well, we built cathedrals because we were under the erroneous idea that a God exists.
The irrational belief.
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't think anybody is going to be like, The only reason why we built cathedrals and churches is because we were under the irrational belief of blah, 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 blah. Nobody's gonna make an argument like that. That's like that is such a smarmy, stupid way to look at somebody examining this from a more materialist and atheistic point of view. Being atheist does not necessarily mean that you look back on antiquity and say, stupid idiots. Like, yeah, I mean, sure, some people do, but that's a very dumb and ridiculous argument to make, almost as much as it is to argue against that position. They do realize that physics is a thing. They do, but they are not actually arguing that. They're just trying to argue against atheism and materialism by making them into a caricature of what they actually are, which is very weird.
Yes. So there's a constant effort to drive a wedge into our self-consciousness and to constantly think of everything that we think of ourselves as being a lie that we tell to ourselves.
Yes.
For instance, the idea that we are beings with responsibility and freedom to choose and freedom to think and freedom to act. They would say, well, you are looking at the world this way, but this is a lie.
No, nobody's going to make that argument. That's very strange. Hang on. Okay, first of all, this dude is a wet brain, and this and is arguing against a person that doesn't exist. But I want to make sure I don't misquote him. So let's analyze what he says one more time.
Ability and freedom to choose and freedom to think and freedom to act. They would say, well, you are looking at the world this way, but this is a lie.
People that say we have freedom, responsibility, et cetera, a materialist says that this is a lie. Okay.
And everything has become a lie.
And that's very interesting because...
No, it's not. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. Nobody says that. Nobody ever says that. That is so bizarre. You don't actually have responsibilities. What in the world? Nobody has ever done that.
Within the spiritual, we'll just call them, the spiritual traditions to describe this kind of transcendental order that every civilization up until now had as well. This is where the stock of wisdom resides, right? So, so you've got the Christian doctrine, right? Okay, get married, have children, be faithful. To say, okay, there is no spiritual order here, is to say that everything that is contained within the spiritual order is null and void.
No, because why would any of those things necessarily have to be within a spiritual order? They can exist without them.
It's not. It's all a lie, like you say. And so, you see this radical position with the sort of liberation feminists. It's like, well, okay, well, I can.
Okay, yeah, this is all going to go to the culture war thing. Look, this whole argument that they're trying to talk about is predicated upon the idea that moral values, responsibility, notions of personal freedom and choice are somehow encapsulated perfectly within only spirituality. And that makes no goddamn sense because those things do not require spirituality. None of them do at all. That's very strange. Very, very strange.
I can be as free sexually as I want. This is what sexual liberation is.
Sure.
There will be no downsides to any of this. And of course, these women are learning that actually, this may work in the sort of 10 years of their youth, but after 30, suddenly the problems with this that their grandmothers would have known become much more apparent. And then as they reach their 40s...
it's the whole ladies fall off thing, because of course they always talk about women in this case.
They start becoming a bit bitter about the lie that they were told, that there was no truth in the spiritual order, that they were so quick and easy to throw away because they had no respect for the wisdom.
Without religion, you're going to be a slut. Thanks, Sargon. Big brain hours. This is so dumb.
And they're in.
This is the opposite side of the same coin. That if on the one hand we view ourselves in a positive way, and we are told that this is an illusion, the opposite side of the same coin is that if we are doing something that we would consider bad, and that would go against our natural moral sensitivities and moral sentiments, Well, again, that's
Can't be bad.
can be bad either.
Yeah. If there's no good, there's no bad with it. And so, like you say, we're amoral beings.
Yes.
Why can't I just attend as many orgies as I want? Well,
You can. You can. And if from a spiritual perspective, your ability to make that choice would come from God. Would come from God. But at the same time, this whole moral argument stemming from spirituality makes no goddamn sense when you consider the awful things that have been done in the name of God. Any God. Every God. I mean, like, murder is wrong unless, it's so absolutely insane. I cannot believe that Carl has allowed himself to de-evolve to this point, to making these types of stupid fucking arguments. Like, this is vacuous, hollow-headed nonsense. This is so weird.
the wise man would say you'll learn the hard way. And unfortunately, a lot of people are learning
they get
hard
the
way.
opportunity to talk.
Yes, yeah, well, and if they don't, okay, fine. But the wisdom contained within the iterative process of building up the stock of knowledge, it's not, it's kind of there whether you like it or not. And so, okay, you can say, look, I'm going to ignore all of that. I'm going to get on with it. You'll just be starting at the position 0, where it was like, okay, well, then I will go through, get the experiences, and oh, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. That's a permanent disease I can't get rid of. This has ruined my chances of ever finding a partner. And then suddenly you end up at the end of the process with all of the knowledge you would have gained at the beginning of the process if you just listened to the tradition first.
If you construct this make-believe scenario, which I'm sure is real and has happened to some people, but this very specific narrative, and then make that is a result of moving away from spiritual morality and not once examine the awful things that can happen from somebody living a spiritually moral life, then I can just easily call you a liar and a propagandist. I mean, this is so ridiculous. If you argue in very specific, narrow terms, and only those terms, and you don't analyze it in any broad context whatsoever, of course you make a great point to yourself.
Yes. It's an interesting thing, though, to move one step backwards and focus on the epistemic side of it.
Okay, let's do it.
And I think this is precisely what is driving many of your worries.
Yep.
Okay.
So this idea that natural science is right now the way that we give all explanations, including every single aspect of human action.
Yeah, we don't do that. Nobody does that. Nobody uses the natural sciences to be like, why do the colors well, actually that one they might, why the colors red and green together make people hungry. That actually might be easily explainable by natural sciences. But for like social phenomenon, and how we collectivize into groups, and why groups then will create biases against each other and compete. You don't need natural sciences to necessarily explain those things, although you can glean quite a bit from it, because we do know that competition, bigotry does exist in the natural world as well. Like, we can see these things, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a natural science. Sociology and biology do not necessarily have to intersect, and if one informs the other, that's a good thing, because that's learning.
This has some good. It has some good implications.
Yep.
So, for instance, we can look at someone who has an epileptic seizure, and instead of saying that this person is possessed and we should burn them,
Yep.
we can look at it as a mechanical failure.
Sure.
But on the other hand, so in one sense, science is incredibly liberating.
Yes.
But in another sense, it does threaten to create a void and a situation where we are not able to find meaning in the way that we come to conceive of ourselves.
Why? How? Why? How?
It's an issue of self-conception. And again, self-conception uses language to express who we think we are and who
Yes.
and what we think we stand for.
The fuck are you
One of the
talking about?
problems of abandoning the sort of, I'm just going to keep calling it the spiritual. I don't mean divine necessarily, but the sort of transcendental conception we have of the universe. One of the problems with abandoning that and going straight into pure materialism is that, okay, well, it turns out that we are merely material as well. And so anything that was sacred about a human being, well, actually, you're fungible matter just as much as this table or, you know, the chair or whatever. Why shouldn't you be treated as such?
Which leads us into
Okay. I have a news flash, but the universe does not give a fuck about human beings. It does not. To try and position yourself psychologically into giving yourself a higher purpose larger than just simply your own experience and your own impact around you is foolish. It is. It's foolish. It's one of the things that I think is the very big difference here. Sargon likes this idea, and I know he likes this idea because I've known him a long time. He likes this idea of like divine purpose, of I want to say divine right, but I'm not going to put it that hard on him, you know what I mean? That human beings in and of themselves are the destined of the universe. The only destiny that we really have is our own destiny, our own personal conceptions of self, what we choose to do, the impacts that we have on the world, our relationships with people, etc., etc., etc. A materialist is not going to debate those things. A materialist is not going to be like, oh, you think you're important to your family and friends? Loser, you're not. Or that somebody who has a lot of political power and clout that they don't actually because it's not real or material. Like, nobody makes those arguments at all. A materialist is just simply acknowledging a human being's place in the universe and what their impact has and looking at things in the broader context of reality. Not like, you know, living in reality. I mean, whoa, reality. Whoa, reality. Like everything. That's the materialist position. And even then, like, if you're just a straight materialist, I also kind of think that you might be missing out on some stuff. So this argument is an argument that he's having with nobody. It's so dumb.
into thinking that whenever we feel or we think,
Yeah.
I prefer the word think,
Okay.
that we have been wronged,
Yep.
that this is all a lie.
Mhm.
It's just the way that the brain looks at the world.
Yeah. And
It's just a useful illusion.
we could change the way that we perceive the world by simply changing the brain chemistry, and that would solve the problem.
You can. You absolutely can. That is a thing that can happen.
Yes. And I think that this, incidentally, I think that this approach is failing, especially when it comes to psychotherapy.
Well, this is
Surprise, surprise.
There are memes about this all over the internet because they're so obviously true. Where the meme is just, you know, some young man or young woman who goes to the doctor and says, "Doctor, I'm really depressed. I do this thing, I do that thing, I do the other thing, and it's making me really sad." And the doctor's like, "Well, here's a pill,
Yeah.
so you won't be sad anymore." It's like, okay, but why not stop doing the things that are making you sad?
That has nothing to do with what he was just talking about. And it's like, okay, so the dumbass on the right is slightly less dumbass than Carl is, okay? He did at least start to kind of tackle the topic where Carl's like, it's like those memes, you see. Yes. Okay. Obviously neither of these guys know anything about neuroscience or the broader conceptualization of how our minds work. Everything that you experience every single day is not actually what you experience. That is not the case. What you see, what you are listening to right now while you're watching this video, none of this is actually real. What you experience is not actually real. What you are experiencing is an interpretation of sense data that is being processed and crunched by the most powerful machine in the known universe so far, the human brain. It is taking everything of the sense data from your visual, your tactile, your auditory, everything, compiling it together and creating in real time the construct of what it interprets the world to be and feeds it to you. We only conceive of a fraction of a percentage of the sense data that our brains take in. For every single thing that we see, an unfathomable amount of more data is actually being processed by your brain. You don't get to see it. You won't hear it. You won't feel it because it is being processed and filtered by your brain. And this idea that instead it's being just gifted to you by some higher spiritual fucking awareness is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it takes away from one of the most incredible aspects of this, which is far, in my opinion, far more incredible than any notions of spiritualism and divine power of human beings. And that is, we are amazing. And inside of all of us right now is the most amazing fucking machine. And yes, it may be material, but that doesn't make it any less of a fucking miracle. It is a miracle. The human mind is a fucking miracle. True, it came about because of absolute biological chaos. But that it exists is a miracle and wonderful and amazing. And watering it down to this kind of like, I'm 14 and deep, have no idea what I'm talking about, I just want to make a really cool sounding point, is so insulting to how fucking cool each and every one of us actually is and the potential that we have. I find it absolutely insulting, and I honestly feel bad for people like this. I really do. I really do. They have to argue themselves into some position where the only reason why they're incredible isn't just because that they are they and that they exist, but because of some metaphysical aspect, you know, that for them would be immutable and unchanging. And I think that's fucked up, you know? I feel bad for them.